key is to surround yourself only with people who uplift you, whose presence invokes your best relationships. False friendships can be difficult to identify, much like distinguishing a mirage from an oasis in the vast desert of human interaction. In a world full of meetings and missed connections, where masks of politeness and self-interest are skillfully worn, discerning who truly cares for us is an art that demands not only intuition but also keen observation. Sometimes, we end up placing too much trust in the kindness and goodwill of others when, in reality, we are merely being used. Just as a skilled gardener knows how to distinguish between nurturing plants and those that drain the soil of nutrients, we must learn to identify true allies in our lives and recognize emotional parasites. Therefore, we will now discuss subtle signs and less obvious patterns that reveal hidden intentions behind forced smiles and empty promises. If you are here, it's because you're interested in personal development, and in this content, we will talk about the wisdom of deciphering these human puzzles, illuminating the path to a more fulfilling life in relationships. Before we begin, I would like to ask you not to skip watching this video until the end because all the content is important. Stay strong and focused. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Failure to fulfill promises. This act of making and breaking promises can be likened to a theatrical performance, where words are the actors and actions the neglected script. These individuals have mastered the art of verbal persuasion, painting vivid images of commitment and support. However, their words often lack the substance of action. They create expectations with the flourish of a painter, but when it comes time to turn these painted dreams into reality, they falter, revealing the emptiness of their assurances. This pattern emerges when their support is most needed, when their promise is about to be fulfilled. These individuals often disappear, leaving behind a void filled with disillusionment. This absence in times of need is not just a breach of trust but a clear indicator of their true motivations. Their promises are tools of manipulation intended to extract value, trust, or support without the intention of fulfilling them. Therefore, the failure to fulfill promises becomes a decisive test, distinguishing between those who value relationships as a two-way street of respect and mutual support and those who see relationships merely as paths to personal gain. For those left in the lurch, the experience often brings a painful but valuable lesson. Not all promises are built on integrity and honesty. Therefore, the failure to fulfill promises is a critical behavior to observe. Understanding and identifying individuals who seek to use others is a behavior that speaks louder than the most eloquent words, revealing the true character and intention of a person. Recognizing this pattern can help navigate the complex terrain of human relationships with a more discerning eye, safeguarding your trust and emotional investment. Depreciative or disdainful comments. Individuals who habitually use others as stepping stones for their personal gain are adept at using depreciative comments as a tool for erosion, corroding self-esteem, confidence, and self-worth in their targets. These comments, sometimes disguised as humor or casual banter, are actually barbed hooks designed to bring down rather than uplift. They may trivialize your successes, mock your aspirations, or appear disinterested and indifferent to your struggles and challenges. The behavior is akin to psychological warfare, subtly undermining your achievements and aspirations systematically. These individuals create an imbalance in the relationship, a calculated move to ensure that you remain in a position of doubt and diminished self-esteem, making you more susceptible to manipulation and control in their eyes. Diminished self-esteem boosts their status, solidifying their dominant position in the relationship. Additionally, these disdainful remarks often reflect their own insecurities and feelings of inadequacy. By belittling others, they attempt to mask their own vulnerabilities and project a facade of superiority. This behavior is a telling sign of their inability to engage in healthy, reciprocal relationships. Recognizing and understanding this pattern of behavior is crucial to see through the superficial charm often used by such individuals and understand the underlying toxic dynamics of the relationship. It serves as a warning to address the behavior with the individual, establishing clear boundaries, or distancing oneself from such a toxic environment. Unilateral benefit. This can manifest in various facets of a relationship, whether financial, emotional, or practical. The user may frequently borrow money or resources with promises of repayment or reciprocity that never materialize. Emotionally, They may heavily rely on the other for support, validation, and attention but offer little or nothing in return. The unilateral nature of the relationship resembles parasitic behavior in nature, where one organism benefits at the expense of the other. The user, like a parasite, obtains sustenance, be it financial, practical, or emotional support, without contributing equally or adequately to the well-being of their host. Sometimes, this lack of reciprocity can deplete the resources of the giver, whether emotional, financial, or temporal, leaving them drained and dissatisfied. The motives behind unilateral benefit are often rooted in deeply ingrained egocentrism and a lack of empathy. Recognizing this pattern requires a discerning eye, involving acknowledgement of the persistent lack of reciprocity and the feeling of being perpetually shortchanged in the relationship. It demands an honest assessment of whether the interactions make you feel valued and respected or used and devalued. Intelligence, a tool used to maintain the upper hand in the relationship by invalidating your feelings and needs. The user creates an environment where your self-esteem is undermined, making you more susceptible to their influence and control. It's a form of emotional manipulation executed subtly but with significant impact. This dynamic is particularly harmful because it strikes at the core of someone's emotional well-being. The need to be heard, understood, and valued is fundamental. When these needs are repeatedly ignored, it can lead to a decline in self-esteem and a sense of isolation, even when in an ostensibly active relationship. Navigating such waters is essential to recognize the signs of neglect. In this context, science becomes a beacon guiding you away from relationships where your emotional well-being is at risk. It empowers you to seek connections where reciprocity, respect, and mutual care are the fundamental pillars. Emotional manipulation often begins insidiously with the manipulator presenting themselves as caring and attentive. However, this facade quickly transforms into a mechanism to induce feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, or guilt in their target. They become adept at pressing emotional buttons, praising and uplifting when it suits their purpose, and then harshly criticizing or undermining to create doubt and dependence. Consider the analogy of a gardener and a delicate plant. A caring gardener nurtures by providing the right amount of water and sunlight, whereas an emotional manipulator, like a neglectful gardener, alternates between overwatering and letting the plant wilt. They use emotional extremes to destabilize, creating an environment where the target becomes emotionally dependent, constantly seeking approval and validation to regain that initial warmth. This manipulation often strikes at the core of someone's emotional well-being, diminishing achievements or amplifying failures to keep them in a perpetual state of doubt. They may twist situations to make you feel guilty for normal actions, shifting blame to ensure you're always the one apologizing. In relationships where emotional manipulation is at play, the balance of power is always skewed. The manipulator decides when to offer affection and when to withdraw it, keeping their target off balance. This dynamic is not about growth or mutual support. It's about catering to the manipulator's needs at the expense of the other's emotional health. Identifying emotional manipulation requires sharp awareness of these dynamics, recognizing patterns of interaction where someone's feelings are consistently toyed with. It demands introspection to understand how these interactions affect one's sense of identity and emotional well-being. Lack of genuine support. Imagine a tree in a vast forest, ideally supported by surrounding trees and undergrowth, receiving shelter, nutrients, and the company of a thriving ecosystem. Now, imagine a tree standing alone in a barren landscape, without any other flora to offer support or protection. This is akin to being in a relationship with someone who lacks genuine interest in your well-being. You're left unsupported, with your branches reaching out for camaraderie that never materializes. In such relationships, your goals, projects, and challenges are met with apathy or symbolic gestures of support. This person may not genuinely care about your plans, offering only timid well wishes or verbal support, while their actions speak louder when it comes to tangible assistance, meaningful advice, or even a listening ear during tough times. Their presence is noticeably absent, and any help offered tends to be superficial, more about form than substance, and often evaporates when most needed. The reason behind this lack of genuine support is rooted in self-interest or failures. Your challenges or interests only matter to them if they affect their outcomes or goals. They view relationships through transactional lenses, where emotional investment is calculated based on potential personal returns. This attitude creates an imbalance where one party continuously gives, be it effort, care, or resources, while the other often makes the giver feel undervalued and invisible. Recognizing this lack of genuine support is crucial to understanding the nature of your relationship with such an individual. It requires an honest assessment of reciprocity in your interactions. Identifying and addressing this lack of support is key to ensuring that you invest your time and energy in relationships that nurture reciprocal and genuinely supportive bonds. Constant competition. Imagine a game of chess where every move is calculated not only to advance one's position but also to systematically undermine the opponent. Similarly, someone who merely wishes to use you often treats your relationship as a strategic game. Each of your decisions, achievements, or even challenges becomes an opportunity for them to assert superiority. Whether by overshadowing your professional successes, surpassing your personal achievements, or subtly undermining your decisions. Their actions are motivated by the need to stay ahead in this self-imposed competition. This constant competition manifests in various ways. In a professional setting, they may try to overshadow you in meetings or take credit for your ideas. In personal relationships, they may downplay your experiences or achievements, often juxtaposing theirs to seem more significant. Even in casual conversations, there's a palpable tendency for them to try to prove they're smarter or more successful. The root of this behavior lies in deep-seated insecurity and a distorted perception of self-worth, where their value is measured not by their own merit but by being superior to others. In a zero-sum game where they win, another person, namely, you, must lose. It's a mindset where mutual growth is overshadowed by the desire to outdo each other. Dealing with someone who exhibits constant competition can be emotionally exhausting, creating an environment of perpetual tension where collaboration or genuine support is replaced by rivalry. Your successes aren't celebrated but seen as challenges to their dominance, and your struggles aren't met with empathy but viewed as opportunities for them to gain an advantage. Identifying and understanding this pattern is crucial as it helps set boundaries and recalibrate the relationship, if possible, towards a healthier and collaborative dynamic. It involves recognizing that the foundation of any constructive relationship is mutual respect and support, not an unrelenting race for superiority. Absence in critical moments. This pattern of behavior resembles a tree that provides shade only when the sun is gentle but disappears when storm clouds gather. In good times, when sailing is smooth, they're there, enjoying the shared light and possibly reaping the benefits of the relationship. However, when the weather turns and challenges arise, when support is most needed, their presence dwindles, leaving you to face the storm alone. These individuals treat relationships as a convenience, a means to an end where their involvement is weighed on a personal benefit scale. Their support is superficial and extended only when it aligns with their interests or when there's something to gain. In critical moments, be it a personal crisis, setback, or emotional turbulence, their absence is palpable. It's in these moments that genuine support and empathy are most needed, but their true priorities and lack of commitment to the relationship are clearly revealed. The impact of this behavior on the disappointed person can be profound, fostering feelings of betrayal and disillusionment, eroding trust and reliability thought to be fundamental to the relationship, raising questions about the nature of the bond itself, and often leading to a reassessment of the individual's role and value in someone's life. Understanding this pattern is essential to recognize the nature of the relationship and the other person's true intentions, requiring acknowledgement that consistent support, both in times of joy and adversity, is the cornerstone of any meaningful relationship. The perception that someone is absent during your critical moments serves as a critical test, helping to distinguish between those genuinely invested in your well-being and those in the relationship only for gain. The responses are lukewarm or non-committal. It can be your continuous support and understanding without receiving the same level of empathy or assistance when you need it. Even when sharing personal experiences and vulnerabilities, you may find yourself open and receptive while the other person remains cautious or disinterested. The roots of this lack of reciprocity are rooted in an egocentric approach to relationships. To the user, the relationship is seen as a convenience, a resource to be exploited as needed without the intention of meaningful exchange. Involvement is calculated and depends on what benefits the other person, disregarding the needs and feelings of the other individual. This approach is contrary to the essence of healthy relationships that thrive on mutual give and take, shared experiences, and a balanced investment of emotional labor. Recognizing the lack of reciprocity requires careful observation of the relationship dynamics. It involves asking whether efforts to sustain and enhance the connection are mutually shared or disproportionately assumed by you. This requires an honest assessment of whether the relationship enriches or depletes you. Gossiping, whether equal or distorted, and the betrayal of trust. This can be likened to a double-edged sword. On one edge, the act of gossiping about others creates a false sense of camaraderie and trust, making it seem like they confide in you, drawing you into an apparently exclusive circle of trust. However, the other edge of the sword is much more sinister, involving the betrayal of your trust, where the intimate or sensitive information you shared confidentially becomes fodder for gossip with others. This betrayal is not just a breach of trust, it's a strategic move to undermine your sense of security and privacy in the relationship. This conduct reveals a calculated disrespect for the sanctity of personal information and a blatant disregard for the boundaries of confidentiality, using gossip as a social maneuvering tool, often positioning oneself as a nexus of information, disseminating and distorting information to manipulate perceptions, create alliances, or even discord, all for their benefit. This behavior demonstrates a utilitarian approach to relationships, where people are seen as means to an end, and confidential information as currency to be traded. The impact of such actions on the victim is multifaceted, undermining the very foundation of what could have been a supportive relationship and can lead to social and emotional repercussions, as the improper use of personal information can damage reputation, relationships, and self-esteem. Identifying this pattern of behavior is crucial to protect against such relational predation. This involves being vigilant about how they speak of others in your absence and being cautious about the information shared with them. Observing respect for confidentiality and propensity to engage in gossip can provide valuable insights into the character and intentions of the other person. Recognizing and addressing this pattern is essential to maintain dignity and ensure that personal boundaries are respected in all relationships. Selective availability paints a picture of a one-sided relationship similar to a telephone line where only one party is always calling you. In this dynamic, they are perpetually ready to lend an ear, reach out, or offer support while their emotions and resources are open books easily accessible to them. This discrepancy in availability is not just a matter of busy schedules or conflicting priorities. Is a deliberate choice, a strategic stance adopted by the user. Their unavailability serves a dual purpose. It maintains a convenient distance for them and puts them in a position of control. By limiting their availability, they create a dynamic where you feel compelled to feel grateful more often for anything, time, or attention they wish to offer. In such relationships, your efforts to connect or engage are met with excuses, delays, or total neglect. Your messages may go unanswered, your calls ignored, and your needs unrecognized. And when they do engage, it often aligns with their needs or changing agenda. The relationship becomes a one-way street where your role becomes that of a convenience rather than a valuable partner. The emotional impact of this pattern can be significant, generating feelings of inadequacy as you begin to question the value of your contributions and your worth in the eyes of the other person. It creates an underground current of frustration and resentment born from the real perception that your efforts and availability are not reciprocated. Recognizing the pattern of selective availability is crucial. This involves stepping back and objectively assessing the balance of effort and availability in the relationship, requiring an understanding that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and presence. Making you feel guilty visualizes a scenario where guilt is like a rope from a tether pulling the benevolent conscience, leading them down a path they may not willingly choose. The person using you knows how to pull the strings, skillfully leveraging your sense of responsibility, empathy, or justice. They can frame requests in a way that refusal would make you appear indifferent or selfish. Alternatively, they could remind you of past favors or incidents, suggesting an undeclared debt that you are now obligated to repay. This guilt-inducing tactic is often subtle and insidious, starting with small favors or concessions gradually morphing into more significant demands over time. Your boundaries are worn down, and your ability to refuse diminishes, leaving you feeling trapped in a cycle of guilt and submission. The needs and desires of the other person take center stage while yours are marginalized or completely discarded. The effectiveness of this tactic lies in its ability to exploit a fundamental aspect of human nature: the desire to be seen as good, helpful, and caring. By making you feel guilty, the user distorts these virtues, turning them into levers of control. You find yourself doing things not out of genuine desire or mutual respect but out of an imposed sense of obligation, often feeling resentful or drained. Recognizing when someone is using guilt to manipulate you is crucial to maintaining the integrity of your personal boundaries and emotional well-being. Distinguishing between genuine requests for help and attempts to exploit your goodwill also requires the courage to question the motivations behind the requests and assert your right to say no without feeling guilty. Identifying and addressing this manipulative tactic is essential for fostering healthier relationships based on mutual respect, genuine care, and free choice rather than obligation and guilt. Relationships with these individuals often feel like monologues disguised as dialogues. They eagerly delve into the minutiae of their daily lives, expecting your attention and empathy. However, when the spotlight turns to you, their interest wanes. They may respond with superficial nods, abruptly change the subject, or show visible disinterest or impatience. Your problems and experiences, no matter how significant they may seem, barely register on their concern radar. This behavior is not just a lack of social etiquette or conversational skills. It's a deliberate indication of their priorities and intentions. By dominating the conversation and disregarding your stories, they establish a dynamic where their needs, opinions, and life take precedence. It's a subtle form of egocentrism, where the relationship revolves around their axis, and your role is reduced to that of an audience or a sounding board. The impact of such interactions can be deeply disheartening, leading to feelings of insignificance and frustration as the fundamental human need for recognition and understanding goes unmet. Over time, this imbalance can erode the foundation of the relationship, making you feel more like an accessory in their life than an equal partner. Recognizing this lack of personal interest is crucial. It involves being aware of the dynamics of your interactions and acknowledging the emotional impact of these one-sided conversations on you. It requires an assessment to determine whether the relationship is mutually enriching or draining. Identifying this imbalance paves the way for seeking more reciprocal and fulfilling relationships where your stories and experiences are valued and respected as much as their superficial closeness. Maintaining a network of contacts that can be tapped into when needed without investing in the emotional labor that true relationships demand is a strategy to keep people close enough for utility but not close enough to require reciprocal commitment. It's a form of emotional protection, reaping the benefits of closeness without the risk of attachment or real responsibility. Understanding the dynamics at play in a relationship involves observing interaction patterns and questioning whether the perceived intimacy is accompanied by actions of genuine commitment and shared vulnerability. It's about discerning whether the relationship is balanced in terms of emotional investment or skewed to meet their needs. A relationship characterized by a facade of intimacy without the foundation of genuine commitment and mutual growth identification. This pattern allows one to seek and nurture relationships rooted in authenticity, reciprocity, and true emotional depth. Persistent lack of respect goes beyond an occasional lapse of judgment or a slip of the tongue in the heat of the moment. It's a continuous thread woven into the fabric of the relationship, manifesting in various ways, whether through derogatory comments, dismissive attitudes, or blatant disrespect for your feelings and boundaries. This consistent lack of respect deeply undermines the relationship's foundation. Instead of resolving differences with understanding and empathy, they become battlefields without regard for emotional casualties. Recognizing and addressing this pattern of persistent disrespect is vital. It involves looking beyond isolated incidents to see the broader behavioral pattern. In conclusion, persistent lack of respect in a relationship is a significant indicator of someone who sees you not as an equal partner but as a means to an end. Identifying this characteristic is crucial for those who value their self-respect and seek relationships built on a foundation of mutual respect and equality. The topic discussed about different patterns of behavior in relationships is deeply relevant and deserves attention. Each of the patterns described reveals complex and potentially harmful dynamics that can arise in interpersonal interactions. Lack of reciprocity, emotional manipulation, superficiality, and lack of respect are issues that can undermine the health and quality of relationships. It is important to recognize and understand these patterns so that we can identify when they arise in our own lives or in the lives of those around us. In doing so, we can take steps to set healthy boundaries, cultivate authentic relationships, and avoid harmful situations. Furthermore, it is essential to promote a culture of mutual respect, empathy, and reciprocity in our everyday interactions. This requires continuous effort and awareness to recognize the value of each person and nurture relationships based on mutual support, respect, and equality. Ultimately, by addressing these behavior patterns and working to build healthy relationships, we can create stronger communities where everyone feels valued, respected, and supported in their personal and interpersonal journey.